Robert, if given the space is under so much pressure right now, maybe talk to us about your two best picks and why at the current time, they make for good buys.
Great. So the first one I want to talk about is CounterPath. And I think a technology investor has to be selective. You have to pick companies that are in the middle of a non-secular trend, something that's beating the general market. So CounterPath, I think, is a very interesting company. It doesn't have a great profile. It may be the first time a lot of people have heard of it. It's a software developer and vendor. They sell software to primarily to the telcos. As telephony software that makes it possible to make phone calls and video calls over the internet. So there is a big problem right now for the carriers, and that's called Skype, Apple FaceTime, WhatsApp. There's a lot of services that are running over the top, over the public internet, that are taking away business. And so the carriers have to look at what they're going to do from a strategic point of view, and CounterPath it provides software essentially that helps the carriers compete. It gives them a service which they can use and sell under their own brand that gives the same benefits as the over-the-top competitors that they're competing against.
Robert, doesn't it cannibalize their original business, though? I mean, it's a voice over IP for a carrier.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the crux of the problem, I think, a lot of the times, because the carriers make a lot of money off of voice. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most profitable things they have because they've had voice for a long time. A lot of equipment has been around for many years. I've heard estimates of 70% or more gross margins on some of the voice and SMS products. So the problem is who's going to jump first? In the telco landscape, there's 500, maybe 600 telcos on a global scale. There's a lot that are incumbent, and there's a lot that are competitive. The competitive ones are more likely to adopt new technology to get market share. But the problem facing all of them is that these companies like Apple is offering FaceTime, which is video over the internet for free, and they need to address that because Apple is likely to take that business away completely. So instead of making a phone call with your phone number, you're using your Apple ID. And that's a real problem for the carriers because they want you to think of them as the service provider, not Apple.
So what you're saying then is that whether we like it or not, if you're a telco operator, a Bell, a Telus, whatever, you're going to be facing declining margins going forward because of, like you mentioned, the WhatsApp, FaceTime. But this will be a tool that the telcos can then use to reduce the amount of attrition or the margin compression that actually they'd get.
Right. Attrition is the right word. It's churn that they're trying to avoid. So they're not likely to charge extra for these products. They're going to bundle it in to give the customer an option to not go over to Skype and use it as an alternative. Mm-hmm. Because a person who is phoning, say, India is going to want a low-cost service. Mm-hmm. The carrier, Rogers, Telus, Bell, they have a choice. They either keep that customer by giving them a comparable service at a comparable price, or they lose them by by not having the similar product and service.
Robert, just as it relates to CounterPath, what type of growth rate do they have right now, and how well known of a story is this?
Well, I wouldn't say it's very well known. However, I think it's going to become more better known. It's just actually graduated onto the TSX, and it's on the NASDAQ as well in the US. So I think it's going to be better known. Growth rates, it's very high growth, as one would expect in a highly valued small cap software company. Last year, they grew at about 28% year over year. We're expecting them to grow even more this year. And as I said before, Rogers is one of the first customers, and we expect a lot of other carriers to start to look at this company as a viable way to compete, and it could be an avalanche of orders. In fact, they've said that 2/3 of their customer base are in pre-deployment. So it could be a large number of orders that come through in the next year, 2 years.
All right, Robert, very interesting. Thank you very much for being with us today. Mm-hmm. Robert Young, technology analyst at Canaccord Genuity. And up next, our guest made a call back in July that Barrick might be interested in Kinross. We're going to ask him whether that transaction is still in the cards. Stay with us.